All right, welcome back to another DW9 extravaganza. This is us wrapping up the hilly route in Watopia, and as you see, we cross the line in seventh place overall with a fantastic team. Greg taking the lead, taking charge of the team and de-essing for us in the moment. And what a fantastic event it was. We definitely powered through it, but Eat Dirt 2 is still at the top. And so it is week after week talking about our performance and our thrilling exploits in what we're doing. But to see Eat Dirt 2 at the top of the list, at the top of the leaderboard every single week is getting under my skin. I will admit that it is definitely getting under my skin, though they deserve the accolades because they are that good. As you can see, they beat us by beat basically everybody by about 2 minutes. So they are definitely on the top and deserve to be on top. And so that is our goal, is to get there too, to put the pressure down and be competitive with the Eat Dirt 2 squad. And so this coming week, we move over from Watopia and go to the Isle of Mercury in the Neokio all-nighter course. But I will be talking about that here shortly. All right, so this week we have Bobby G, myself, Aaron, Kate, Brian, Steven, and Casey, and Stead. And so, and by Neokio All Nighter, what I meant to say was the Richmond 2015 UCI course, because of course it wouldn't be a me video without making some sort of mistake. And so, as you will see on this course profile in the sauce graphic down at the bottom of the screen, it is a punchy start to begin with. We head essentially downhill, and then we have two brief hills that are going to really warm up the legs. And so warming up for a stage like this is absolutely imperative. If you're not warming yourself up before races, I would highly encourage you to do it. I can tell you that that has made a big difference for me. Not only just spinning the legs out, but spinning the legs out with fervor, with effort. And so as we get going here, I actually jumped to the second lap because the first lap went as the first lap goes. We stayed together. We beat some, passed some other teams, and now we are all at red line doing our best to get through this next round. And so, as you see, as we start heading downhill, we are quickly coming to the first integral hill, which is absolutely bananas. You can see by the profile, it slopes up, which that slope upward, and so as you see it, as we start hitting that slope upward can really damage your momentum. You see where we were going about 48, 49 kilometers an hour. Now we're starting to come down to about 40 kilometers an hour before we officially hit the start of the real ramp of this hill. We're still only doing, we're only doing 1% or so. And so that slowed us down significantly as we start to hit this hill, hitting at just over 30 kilometers an hour, and just doing our best to kind of stay together as a group. At this point, like I said, all of our legs are a little bit softened after that first round going through this course. And so it is a matter of finding the right gear to be in. I end up pushing a little bit harder than prescribed. We, wanted to stay around the mid threes, low fours. I ended up just kind of pushing on because I was having a hard time staying, kind of fighting through my gears. And so I ended up pushing on. And, once I got to the top, I eased up so that way, I didn't go too far off the front. Again, the goal is not to leave the team behind on climbs like this, but to just kind of put myself in a position where, I can be there with the team as we get to the top. I do end up falling, as you can see, I do end up falling off the back a little bit as the team passes me. But I let them know on comms as we are on Discord that, hey, don't worry about me. I will catch you on the hill. Because I was feeling good enough to where I knew I could put some pressure on myself on this climb. So as you can see, I hit 700 watts, ramping into the climb, and then kind of settle in around the mid 300s to upper 300s. And so end up catching the team and, joining them at the top of this climb, which did make for some fun. That was that going up that KOM in minute 39 did make for some fun, softened up the legs even more. And so as we start to get to the top here of the flat part of this climb, we are, doing our best to regroup, getting ourselves settled in, because now is when we start the long descent into that valley between the cobblestones of Richmond all the way back to the main streets of the Richmond course. And so again, fell a couple meters behind, but not too worried. The team is going at a blistering pace, but as you can see, we hit 80 kilometers an hour on this downhill, which is, I mean, incredibly fast for that for that short downhill. It's incredibly fast to be able to hit that. And so we just kind of regroup together, start getting in line again, and do our best to kind of reorganize ourselves. That is a big key factor in how to race these team time trials, is making sure that you can get yourself organized as quickly as possible, get into as much of a line as possible. You see my draft gauge is well into the 100s of watts of savings, and it's really because we've got enough speed and momentum, as well as a big enough squad to be able to allow for such a good draft. And our target for this race was upper threes, low fours. And so that's kind of where, the front person's at. But as you start to get into, you know, the positions down the line, you will, get a lot of savings. So you're not going to be at full speed, when you're in the line, or at least you shouldn't be. If you're having to work hard on a TTT, then usually it's because you're out in the wind or you're not close enough to get a good draft. So you got to stay close to maintain a good draft. We kind of bunch up a little bit because at this point, we are kind of figuring out, some people are hurting and are just doing their best to stay in. And the best position for anybody in that scenario is to stay in the middle of the group, versus off the back. Even though the back offers a lot of draft, there's always a risk of falling off the back, especially when you look at a climb like this that's coming up. It's a long, draggy climb. It's not very steep. It does have this little initial, 10, 11% kicker once you make that turn, but it starts to even out into that, mid 5%. And so as we're going through, I push myself off the front just to kind of set the pace for the team. I'm trying to stay in the mid threes, but I end up, as I go up the hill, my power kind of fluctuates a bit. And so we got a couple guys that, are able to hold their power a little bit better than I am. So they end up passing me and kind of, creating that template for me to kind of pace off of them. And as we, continue going forward, you see we're all stringing out a little bit, as we're going up the line, not trying to, we're not trying to drop each other. We're not trying to leave each other behind. We're just trying to maintain a good pace line. Um, but as the fatigue sets in, it is, you know, at this point, it is, you're giving everything you got. As you can see, my shirt is officially a new color, much darker color. So I'm in the middle of construction in the house right now. And so I've been relegated to being outside in the Florida summer heat. And it's not even summer yet officially. But this May, we have a heat storm or something that's coming through that it is just absolutely insane outside right now. So even though it is later in the evening for me, it is still very, very hot. And so while I do my best to stay hydrated and cooled, my one fan is not really doing enough anymore. And so I'm, getting it all out of my system, getting all the fluids out of my system. And so as we start to, get to the top of the Richmond roads here, again, putting ourselves back in as best of a line as possible. all of us, really doing what we can to kind of hold on to each other, and communicating that through the chat is just letting each other know, like, hey, this is where we're at, this is how we're feeling, let's do our best to stay together. If someone's got to skip a turn, they skip a turn. That's one of the benefits and beauties of being on the squad, is that we really do our best not to leave anybody behind, even if it means that we have to slow down a little bit. We want to be competitive, but we also want to, the fun of racing like this is that we do it together. Not that we're here to, just blast everybody out the back, and the final four are the ones that, get the joys of crossing the finish line and, cheering on the successes. We do our best to stay together and cross the line together as much as possible. And so as we, again, continue through the Richmond roads, we are kind of bouncing and, going through each other, going, filling in the gaps as we can with the pace line as much as possible. We are a little bit separated. We do have a couple guys that, again, you know, are hurting a bit. So I end up pushing to the front for my turn, and just kind of doing my best to hold. I know our goal was to hold about 43 kilometers an hour. But as the legs are truly, at their limits here for all of us, I am just doing my best to kind of I'm looking, so because we're going the speed we're at, and we're, going as hard as we can. I've not used the rear facing camera in a while. And partly is because I'm looking at where I'm at and where the person behind me is at. And so where the second place person is at, I am doing my best to kind of keep them within the, 2 to 3 meter range, not to go too far ahead. And if I have to ease up a little bit, I'll ease up, in order to kind of keep them there in that draft. Um, because again, we don't want to split apart the group when we're on the front like that. And so as we get to the last, 4.5 kilometers here, we're really starting to feel it. You see, we got 7 in our team right now. One of our guys was like, hey, I'm done. Don't even worry about me. Seth was just like, go for it, guys. Like, I'm cooked. And so he, graciously just gave us that permission to just push and keep going. And so that's, ultimately what we did. You see, we got a little, about 20 second, already 20 seconds on him, um, on this last part, which, again, bravo to him, because he held on as long as he could. And that is, again, that is in its own right, and in its own, in its own scenario, respectful. However it's said. I'm getting myself tongue tied here. But lots of respect for that, because that is how every one of these TTs go. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've fallen off the back, on the first couple kilometers sometimes of these CTTs, because I just could not keep up with the speed and momentum. And then, ultimately trying to get onto the back of a team that's, flying up the road is harder than it seems to be, even if you're fresh. And so when you can hold on as long as you can, it is its own valiant effort. And we always give respect to everybody that is able to, to join us and make it as far as they can. And so as we close out these last couple kilometers, again, we are doing our best to just keep together, push through where we can, stay organized as we can. We pass a DW9 rider there, and just kind of it's always that scenario of like, as quickly as possible we can, wave hi virtually, but we're coming through. We're motoring at 50 kilometers an hour right now, and picking up speed as we, go through this 2-3% down decline, and then start to level out here as we enter the last kilometer of the stage, which it is, every time I've gone through this stage, this rolling, kind of falls flat in Richmond always gets me, man. I always feel like I've got the legs to push hard, and then that, 0.5%, 2% riser will hit, and I feel like I lose steam. And so as we get to this, last 800 meters here, I am focused on just getting to the line. And so at this point, we're just kind of free flowing it, pushing it as best we can, um, and just on the, on our focus to get there and to just kind of finish. And so as we hit 600 meters, we're just encouraging each other to push, push as hard as you can, get as far as fast as you can until we get that, that word to just push without regard. And that is where, I always do my best to give absolutely everything I got at the very end because, even though it's the fourth person that crosses the line that ultimately sets the time, if I can push as hard as I can, and you see that we are blistering, motoring, and just looks like the Top Gun, flight squadron as we cross the line here. The four of us that went up were just holding on to each other's wheel and ultimately crossed the line in 49 minutes flat, for me, which, man, that was an effort, man. Even though, you look at the numbers and, my 5 minute power, 20-minute power are, not my, personal best. You can see by the color of my shirt, I gave absolutely everything. I was exhausted when we finished that race. And so it truly was a great race. Ultimately our team, crossed the line in, the positions that we did, but did a absolutely fantastic job overall. And so going once again to the results, we are in seventh place yet again. Seventh place. And Eat Dirt 2 once again beat us by about 2.5 minutes, which again, they are a fantastic squad and truly deserving of their, recognition in, being as strong as they are and taking first place week after week. But that is the goal, is to, at some point, whether it's this week coming up in the Neokyo All Nighter or another week, is to end that reign because we have a great squad with DW9. No matter who's in the race, we always have a great squad and always have capable, very capable racers to be able to challenge them for first place. So I will catch you guys on the next race. See ya.
Hey guys, it's Miguel from that thing you just watched. Hope you enjoyed that video, whether it was topic on nutrition or racing or a combination of both. Feel free to come back. I will continue to put out videos like this and continue to showcase what you can do with smart nutritional strategies, combining that with racing, because that is what this channel is all about. And feel free to check in if you want to see more racing. Click on wherever the link's at, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next race.